How I went from this template to the final animation in 8 days using only Blender. I posted this online and it got so many likes, so here's my full process. Hope you learn something new. On 29th of July a new 3D challenge began. One angle montage with great prizes, hosted by Punisher. I had participated in previous challenges, so I knew that I could make something cool for this one. But there was one major problem. Back then I was enjoying my summer holiday in the middle of nowhere, and my PC was hundreds of kilometers away. I wouldn't be back home until the end of August, leaving me 8 days to work on this project. I needed to be really fast for this to work out. Best idea that popped into my head was a Dune related boss fight, with a sandworm approaching the hero, accompanied by a huge dust cloud, all made in NPR style. I'm a big fan of the Dune novels and movies, so this idea got me excited. So what could I do before I got back home? I did have my phone with me, so I took screenshots of the announcement video and trailers. Then I used the phone's drawing tool to draw my idea and uploaded everything to the cloud. Then I just kicked back and took it easy until I got back home, where I took the project files and my reference photos. I started by modeling the desert using multiple subdivided planes that I sculpted for the shape I wanted. For the material I mixed noise and wave textures for the bump, giving the desert a little bit of variation. I decided to use cycles with relatively low samples because of the built-in world sky texture, which is super awesome by the way. I felt like I had more control over the lighting and shadows versus using a regular HDRI. I can highly recommend it. Next day I got my hero character from Mixamo.com. I chose this model with a goalkeeper animation and downloaded the 24fps version. Back in Blender, I scaled the animation so it was slower. I projected another texture to the model. Then I modeled a very simple looking headscarf with the Solidify modifier, texture I got from Blender Kit add-on. I also modeled the simple hooks for the character to hold and to rise up. I parented the hooks to an empty object, and then 2 arm bones so I could make minor adjustments easier. Next day I did the cape. I added the subdivided plane that I sculpted a little. I assigned a vertex group to the top and added a cloth modifier with a pin targeting the vertex group. Then I parented the object to the character's neck bone and enabled collisions. I also added a little bit of wind. This took a lot of tries before I was happy. Next day I made the sandworm from a cylinder with no top faces. I added some loop cuts in the middle and a displace modifier which was using a cloud texture. I also added solidify modifier to give the cylinder some thickness and different materials for inside, outside and rim. Material was basically a gradient and wave textures hooked to the principal BSDF shader. Only difference was that the outside had more bright color and a different rotation to it. I applied the modifiers and made more changes to the inside of the mouth using sculpt mode. I modeled the lips using a simple shape together with the solidify modifier that I applied. Then I sculpted the mesh a little to make it more organic. Then I sculpted a simple fang shape and added a hair particles system for the lips that used the fang object. I used weight painting to choose where the fangs would appear. When you select that vertex group in the density, it works. Most of the time, I had to apply the hair particles, because it kept bugging during animations. I didn't have time to do any kind of rigging in this project, so I moved the origin point and added location and rotation keyframes to the lips. I also added the circle object and a hair particles systems for it. Now with few hundred hair strands that I converted to curves so I could add shape keys and change the shape when the mouth opens. Then I added the empty object and parented all worm parts to it, so I could animate it going forward. I also added the lattice object for the main body of the worm. With lattice objects you can deform the mesh, especially high poly meshes, more easily. They also support shape keys, so I made some minor adjustments to the worm when the mouth opens. Finally I added few point lights inside the mouth to display it more when it was open. Next day I almost started to panic, because I still had so much to do and only 3 days left to do it. So I started working with dust particles. I didn't have time to mess with MantaFlow or geometry nodes, so I used the goooo particle systems for it. I had one icosphere that had a subdivision modifier and a displace modifier with a Voronoi texture that got its coordinates from an empty object that had a driver moving it forward slowly, then a smooth modifier to ease the results. I added 2 modified planes next to the worm and one in the back and added the particle systems for them. I had 40,000 particles that started way before the actual animation started, so they would be dust in the air right away. Lifetime was set quite low, so dust wouldn't cover the whole screen and you could see the desert behind it at the beginning. I also added a duplicate particle systems in front of the mouth, with a few particles appearing when the mouth opens more. I also had a force field drag to slow the movement of particles and 2 wind force fields, pushing the particles away from the mouth, so they wouldn't clip inside the lips. Everything was parented to the empty, controlling the worm movement, so when I made changes, I only had to bake particles again. Next day I modeled the Thumper based on the first Dune movie. I made top and bottom parts separate, added a cylinder in the middle, added a basic metallic texture from Blender kit, also a little bit of back and forth animation to it. Keyframes had exponential easing to them, so they would start slow and accelerate faster, and parented the whole thing to an empty object, and animated it go down a little bit each hit. I continued to tweak different parts of the project for the rest of the day. Next day I wanted to add some cartoony effects, and Grease Pencil is the perfect tool for this. You can create 2D effects and animations that you can combine with your 3D scenes very easily. I had a new file for these effects with the same resolution that the main project. First I made the lines. I had radial guides on and drew around 8 different keyframes worth of lines that I duplicated up to 120 frames. I added a thickness modifier with a custom curve, also blur effects and shadows. Thump text was its own object. It had a shadow effects on it. Lines were on their own layer. I added a build modifier targeting the lines. First was the build one, 5 frames length. Another one was the vanish one, also 5 frames length. I appended these into the main animation and moved them in 3D space for the right position. I matched the start of the animation when Thumper goes down, and added blank keyframes after the line animations were done. Then I duplicated this same set to the point when the Thumper goes down again. Okay, last day, let's do this. I added few images as planes, smoke animations, with different sizes way back of the desert, also one to the very front, so it would seem there was a small wind that moved the cape for instance. I added a mist pass that I composited using a mix screen node to have background fade out more. So final tips before I wrap this up. Number 1. I always had a workspace open when I could see how things looked at the camera. I could easily enlarge the space using Control Space hotkey. This saved me a lot of time on guessing stuff. Number 2. When the scene got heavier and heavier, I used Eevee with a solid view and rendered the viewport animation straight to video, so I could spot problems faster. Number 3. Every day when I was done, I uploaded the unfinished animation to the cloud so I could view it from my phone and spot more problems and come up with more ideas for the project. Without this step, I wouldn't have made it. So did this get to the top 100? No, but the journey was a fun one and I learned a bunch of new stuff. Hope you did also. See you next time.